I never meant to keep my success a secret. Standing outside my aunt's suburban ranch in Austin on a crisp Christmas Eve in 2019, I watched frost gather on my boots and wondered how different life might have been if my family had believed in me, just once. I'm Tessa Langford, founder and CEO of Solaria Strategy Partners, a rising force in energy consulting across the Southwest. But to my family, I'm still the reckless one who quit a stable analyst role at Dawson Green 6 years ago to play entrepreneur. The string lights blinked indifferently above me as I remembered last Christmas. Still freelancing? Maryanne had asked, swirling her wine, her Rice MBA gleaming as brightly as her engagement ring. Uncle Dean knows someone hiring admin staff at Chevron, Mom added cheerfully. Never mind that Chevron had just paid my firm $3 million to overhaul their solar division. My uncle, Robert Langford, spent 25 years climbing to VP at Langford Energy Services, the company his father founded. Meanwhile, my dad drifted from job to job. That contrast, and the resentment it bred, colored every family gathering. Success is loyalty, Uncle Robert liked to say, nodding toward Maryanne's polished career, business degree, oil job, ruthless networking. I chose a different path. With dual degrees in environmental science and economics, I spent 4 years grinding at Dawson Green while others played office politics. Then I took on my first solo client, a small wind tech startup in Lick. Within 5 months, they doubled their output. When I resigned, Mom cried, "You're throwing your future away." She didn't know I was walking into one. I built Solaria quietly, deliberately. No sign on the door, just results, influence, control. Tonight, they'd finally learn who owned the golden deal they'd been bragging about all year. To them, I was still Tessa the dreamer, renting a co-working desk downtown. They had no idea that space was a front. My real HQ occupied the top 3 floors of Austin's most exclusive high-rise overlooking Lady Bird Lake, but since no one in the family ever bothered to visit, the illusion held. I took a breath and rang the bell. My aunt answered, smiling before her face tightened into concern. "Ta, sweetie, we weren't sure you'd come." She gave a quick hug, then murmured, "Uncle Robert's here, with some investors. Maybe don't bring up your little business tonight." Inside, the house buzzed with warmth, twinkling lights, catered hors d'oeuvres, oil execs mingling with relatives. Maryanne held court by the fireplace, flashing her ring to a captive audience. Jared, her fiancé and Langford Energy's newest junior VP, soaked up the attention. "Tessa," Uncle Robert called from the bar, already half drunk, "come meet Glenn Martin from Velocity Core. They're hiring data entry." I almost laughed. Velocity Core was one of my clients. My team was steering their $120 million shift into renewables. But to them, I was just another Langford who'd never quite lived up to the name. Before I could respond, Uncle Robert barreled over, flanked by 2 suited board members, all charm and arrogance. "These Horizon Grid merger talks are killing me," he groaned. I stiffened. Horizon Grid was mine, a shell company I'd created to bait Langford Energy into overextending. "If we could just get a meeting with Solaria Strategy Partners," Robert muttered, "we might actually move this forward." "Too bad their CEO won't take meetings," one board member said. I took a slow sip of cider to hide my smirk. She was already in the room. "Not yet," Robert said, jaw tight, "but they'll come around. We're Langford Energy, after all." I couldn't help myself. Maybe the name doesn't carry the same weight anymore. Silence. Robert's glass froze midair. Mom's eyes widened. Dad's mouth tensed. "Tessa," he warned. But I didn't stop. "From what I hear, Langford's shrinking. This merger with Horizon Grid? It's not expansion. It's survival." The words struck like a slap. Years of being overlooked, patronized, erased. This was the moment they snapped. Uncle Robert turned crimson. "How dare you? What could you possibly know about our business?" Dad grabbed my arm and dragged me into the kitchen, voice sharp and low. "Have you lost your mind? You embarrassed me in front of the board." I was just. "You've always been reckless," he snapped, "with your little consulting gig, pretending you understand real business." The door creaked. Maryanne leaned against the frame, Jared behind her. "Maybe she should leave," she said sweetly. "No need to stress Uncle Robert more. The merger's more important than hurt feelings." Dad didn't hesitate. "She's right. Go. We don't need a low-level consultant spreading gossip." I looked at them, my father's disappointment, Maryanne's smug grin, my mother silent as ever. 5 years of hiding everything I'd built, and for what? "Fine," I said quietly. reaching for my coat. But remember this moment. Tomorrow will be enlightening. Jared scoffed. What are you gonna do? I smiled, already picturing the signed merger documents sitting on my desk. T.L. Phoenix, CEO of Solaria Strategy Partners, in crisp black ink. Merry Christmas, I said, stepping into the cold, moonlit air. By sunrise, I was at Solaria. The city was still and gray, but our offices hummed with purpose. Good morning, Miss Phoenix, Emma greeted, handing me a fresh espresso. Only 3 people knew the truth. Tessa Langford and T.L. Phoenix were one and the same. And today, that truth would finally break the surface. If you've ever been underestimated by the people who should have known you best, I said, recording into my phone, hit subscribe, because today proves exactly what quiet success sounds like when it finally speaks. Emma reappeared, tablet in hand. The Langford Energy delegation is confirmed for 10 a.m., she said. Your uncle's already called 4 times trying to move it up. I smiled, sinking into the leather chair behind my desk, an expanse of reclaimed longleaf pine, polished smooth, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, art, light, silence. This was my ground now, not the dinner table, not the sidelines. How many are coming? I asked, flipping open the Horizon grid file. 8, Robert Langford, 4 board members, their interim CEO. She hesitated. Your father, Maryanne, Jared. Of course, Maryanne had just been promoted to head of strategic growth, a hollow title dressed up in legacy and nepotism. I exhaled. Emma noticed. Call Gregory at Horizon Grid, I said, tell him to be ready. Gregory knew the play. Horizon Grid was mine. A shell, yes, but armed with teeth and leverage. At 9:45, Emma's voice returned over the intercom. They're early. Should I send them in? Let them wait, I said. 15 minutes. In that pause, I centered myself. No more shrinking, no more secrets. At exactly 10 o'clock, I stood and walked to the conference room. Through the frosted glass, I saw them, my uncle pacing, my father stiff, Maryanne murmuring to Jared. I adjusted my blazer, touched my lipstick, and opened the door. Silence met me. Excuse me, Uncle Robert said, stepping forward. We're here for a meeting with T.L. Phoenix, CEO of Solaria. I walked to the head of the table, calm, unshaken. You are, I said, Tessa Langford, T.L. Phoenix, CEO of Solaria Strategy Partners. The air left the room, faces drained of color. This is a joke, Maryanne snapped. She's bluffing. Sit down, I said. And she did. Emma, I called, distribute the merger packages. As the folders hit the table, I watched it land, the unraveling. Inside, hard data, Langford Energy's exposure, bleeding revenue, my proposed terms. As you'll see, I began, voice steady. Langford Energy's position is more fragile than you've admitted. Modernization failed, capital reserves are dwindling. I clicked the remote. The screen lit up with graphs and numbers they'd never seen. Your market share has dropped 42% in 3 years. Without this merger, you won't make it to Q3. Uncle Robert's face turned maroon. This is outrageous. These numbers are confidential. Nothing is confidential from me, I said. Solaria's been tracking you for years. I let the next truth fall like a hammer. We also control significant portions of your debt, through holding companies you never thought to trace back. Jared gave a shaky laugh. That's not possible. Horizon Grid is international. It is, I said calmly, but it's also mine. I built it for one reason only, to force this conversation. A ripple of panic crossed the room. Every deadline you missed, every clause you overlooked. I was on the other side. You've been playing against me for years. My father finally found his voice. Why would you do this? I met his gaze without flinching, because no one at this table ever believed I belonged. Last night, you threw me out for speaking the truth. Today, you'll listen. I pressed the remote again. The display shifted, charts became action steps. This merger will proceed, but it happens on my terms. Uncle Robert slammed the table. This is madness. Then Langford Energy collapses. I said flatly, it's your choice. The room exploded. Robert shouted legal threats. Maryanne burst into tears. The board whispered in frantic huddles. My father stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Eventually, the chaos quieted. What are your terms? Robert asked, his voice tight. Full restructuring, immediate board resignation, and the end of nepotism. His eyes narrowed. You mean Maryanne and Jared? They're removed, I said. All future roles will be earned, not handed out. Maryanne stood, trembling. You can't do this. Dad, do something. But he didn't, he couldn't. And he knew it. One by one, they signed, each signature a surrender. My father stayed seated, the last to lift his pen. His eyes brimmed with something too raw to name. Tessa, he began. You should go, I said quietly. Emma will show you out. He hesitated. I was wrong about you. Yes, I said, you were. Merry Christmas. When the door finally closed behind them, I walked to the window, twilight casting a golden glow over the Austin skyline. Emma returned, silent, with a glass of champagne. Congratulations, she said gently, though something tells me this isn't the end. She was right, it wasn't the end, it was mile one. They now knew who I was, but they still didn't understand what I could become. Tomorrow would bring headlines, restructuring, media frenzy. But tonight, I allowed myself one breath of satisfaction. The woman they dismissed at Christmas dinner now held the fate of their empire. Revenge didn't need to be loud. It only had to be precise. I raised my glass toward the window. Merry Christmas, I whispered. The following weeks blurred into chaos. TL Phoenix unmasked, the billion-dollar secret behind Solaria's strategy partners, how one woman outsmarted her entire legacy. Every outlet wanted the full story, I gave none. I was scrolling through yet another headline, Tessa Langford, the consultant who outmaneuvered her dynasty, when my phone buzzed. Another message from Maryanne, the 10th this week. Deleted, unread. Emix, Emma said, stepping in. Langford Energy's transition team is ready for your final sign-off. In the past month, the fallout had scorched everything. Robert resigned, then tried to sue. Our legal team buried him in documents proving negligence. My father took early retirement, he couldn't stomach reporting to his daughter. Maryanne and Jared flailed the loudest, painting me as vindictive online, until journalists uncovered how much damage they had caused. Emma returned, her voice softer this time. Your mother's downstairs, she wants to see you. I froze. My mother hadn't said a word to me since the takeover. Send her up. She entered quietly, shrinking under the weight of glass and steel, her eyes wandered, unsure. Tessa, she said, fingers twisting nervously, this is quite an office. What do you want? She sat, looking smaller than I remembered, fragile. Your father's not well, the stress, everything. Maryanne's engagement ended. Jared walked after losing his role, the family's falling apart. I kept my tone even. That's unfortunate, but Langford Energy is already stabilizing. I'm not here about the company, she whispered. I'm here to understand. You worked so hard, and we never knew. Why didn't you tell us? I gave a dry laugh. Tell you? When I made my first million, you were celebrating Maryanne's promotion. When I bought my first firm, you told me to apply for an admin job. We were trying to help. No, I said, you were trying to make me small enough to fit in your box. Tears welled in her eyes. We were wrong. You chose not to see me, I said. That's a decision, and decisions have consequences. She leaned forward. Can't we fix this? Langford Energy will be fixed, I replied. The family? That's not my priority. Emma will show you out. As I picked up my pen to sign the final transition document, I remembered something my grandmother once told me, softly, over tea, before the world got loud. Success isn't about proving others wrong, Tessa, it's about proving yourself right. And I had. I signed. 6 months later, Langford Energy's valuation had doubled. The restructuring was a blueprint for other firms. Messages flooded in, most from family, some furious, some suddenly affectionate. I responded to none, until one caught my eye. Sophie Langford, Robert's youngest, the only one who'd never mocked me. I don't want anything, just wanted to say you inspired me. Watching you claim your power gave me the courage to try. I'm starting something of my own. For the first time in months, I smiled at a family message. Anna, I said, schedule a lunch with Sophie Langford, and look into her startup. Emma looked up. As family? I shook my head, gaze firm. No, as an investor, I'm interested in real potential. That's the legacy I'm building,